WWE 2K17's release on PS3 and Xbox 360 marked the end of a long run for WWE games on these consoles, with the first being 2006 SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 on Xbox 360. 10 years later, WWE 2K made the surprising move to keep these games coming in 2016, which surprised many and even has some questioning the authenticity of the release, as many are just unaware that they had even released a PS3 Xbox 360 version of the game. Should it have happened though? Well, that's for us to find out in this video, as we'll look at a deep dive into WWE 2K's last game ever on Xbox 360 and PS3. We'll go through what it still had that the other versions didn't have, what was missing and what was even changed over the years. So join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at the last ever PS3 Xbox 360 WWE 2K game. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification so you're the first to know when we upload a video. Classic matches, a legacy feature. So one of WWE 2K17's last gen positives for us was how they managed to retain many of the old match types that had been binned since the jump to the next gen with WWE 2K15. Modes such as Special Guest Referee, I Quit and Inferno had managed to survive over the years, whilst the next gen versions decided to keep these match types omitted from that version of the game. Why? Well, we have no idea why. It was thought that these missing match types would surely be added over time, as that was what it felt like at the time. WWE 2K16 added a lot of the missing things from 2K15, but the match types such as the ones mentioned had still managed to be missed off somehow. It's not even like 2K on the next gen had been adding their own exclusive match types up until this point. Now don't worry last gen fans, you still had the majority of match types even whilst 2K was into its third year as a next gen game. We really wouldn't see match type additions and changes until 2K17 and then next year's game 2K18, which was a first non-last gen version game. I guess the lack of last gen support allowed the time to finally add new match types to the modes such as 8-man tag matches. WWE 2K17 would end up adding the Backstage Brawl option, which is kind of a new match type, but we'll talk about that later in this video, as 2K17's last gen also retains its version of the Backstage Brawl. So getting back to missing match types, even to this day we're still waiting for all those match types to come back. We got some great match types such as War Games in 2K23, but it's really about time that the mistakes of 2K15 are finally undone and matches like the Inferno, Special Guest Referee and I Quit make their return once and for all. Match customization, the final creative stand. On top of the missing match types, match customization was still a thing in 2K17 on last-gen consoles, which gave last-gen gamers a chance to create match types they wanted to see. Did you want to see a First Blood cage match? Go for it. How about a 2 out of 3 Falls Hell in a Cell match? You can do that too. You had all the customization options in your hands with 2K17 on last gen. This was still a feature that was missing in next-gen versions of the game, but in all fairness, it wasn't far off. 2K18 finally brought back this beloved feature. I guess now that there wasn't a last gen option to get such an option, they finally thought it was time to let the next gen players get that feature back maybe. Although we have to say that the custom options that were brought back in 2K18 and the ones that still remain to this very day are not at the same level as last gen WWE 2K17. As you just had more options like even changing the ring you wanted a match in. You could literally have a one-on-one elimination chamber match if you wanted to do so. Next up, gameplay features, missing the upgrade train. So this video isn't just to show what's missing on next gen versions, we also want to see how far the game was falling behind on the last gen consoles by 2016, and boy they were falling behind big time by 2K17. With 2K deciding to keep the last gen versions to strictly be a roster update, they have missed out on such features in 2K15 and 2K16 like customizing WWE Superstars, My Career Mode, breakouts, and bits of gameplay features that would add to the overall attention to detail within a match, such as a superstar using the ropes to climb back up to their feet for example. In 2K16, even had the addition of a third man in the commentary booth for the first time ever in a 2K game with the addition of JBL to the team. Last gen versions would stick to the usual combo of Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler. Once 2K17 dropped, they now lacked the brand new crowd fighting feature that had just been added back to the next gen versions. We had crowd fighting in a few games before, but this new version was the most realistic to date, with superstars being allowed to walk through the crowd to get to the stage area or go to a little blocked off area to use weapons. Last gen versions had lacked this feature since SmackDown vs. Raw 2008, which was the last game to do so. But it didn't stop there. Universe mode had some big improvements that were only to be found on last gen versions of the game. Promos, which had been a highly requested feature, had been added to the universe shows for the first time ever, which allowed superstars in rivalries to have a promo battle to hype up their upcoming match with multiple options to choose from, and the goal being to make it sound as good as possible. The feature wasn't the best, but it was just another thing that was missing in the last gen version. Backstage Brawls, nostalgia or necessity. So we talked about the crowd fighting feature earlier, but it didn't stop there. 2K17 also added backstage areas back into the game after being cut from 2K15, but they were back and better than before. You can now go to the backstage area from the ring, this being a feature that had been absent from WWE games since SmackDown Here Comes the Pain in 2003. And sure, the last gen version still had backstage brawls, but this was the same backstage area that had been in the game since 2011's WWE 12. Nothing had been changed or improved, and it was just lacking overall. However, despite there being a lacking backstage area, there was still something that they had over the next gen versions of Backstage Brawls. Those brawls were limited to just 1v1 options. In 2K17 on the Xbox 360 and PS3, you could have triple threat, fatal 4-way, and even a handicap brawl options in the game, which still showed that WWE 2K17 had these little wins every now and then on the last gen consoles, and also showed that developers were not bringing back these features with everything that we had before. It's a common issue that's been in WWE 2K series for a long time now. Reflecting on 2K17's last gen curtain call. So looking back on the last WWE 2K game for Xbox 360 and PS3, you know that this was just a game that was ready to be cut on those generations of consoles. By 2016, it had just fallen behind so much, with there being zero parity with the PS4 and Xbox One versions, which, as we've shown in the video, had its positives and negatives. As for many features it was missing, it still had its fair share of exclusive features not seen on the next gen versions. What you basically had with WWE 2K17 on last gen was a literal roster update with as minimum effort put into the game as possible. It's just lucky that it was pretty much based on one of the best WWE games ever, 2K14. It shows how the game was so good that it could be sold as a basic reskin every year and still technically get wins over the next gen versions of the game. Like we've said throughout this video, we are still missing features from this game to this very day, and the way the games were handled is likely why we see more of the direct parity between PS4, PS5 versions of 2K games with such games as 2K22 and 2K23. There's basically nothing missing in 2K23 on PS4 other than some slight graphical improvements that are missing. We think the days of PS4, Xbox One missing out on the big features is over, and if it came to it, the series would likely end on PS4, Xbox One if it got to the point of not being able to catch up. We certainly won't be seeing any days of old gen versions beating new gen versions, those days are over for sure. But yeah, it was interesting looking back at the last game of the long run of games for the console. It was ready to be over for sure, but it was still a somewhat respectable end to the series that had some advantages over its next gen versions. So to end off, WWE 2K17 on last gen absolutely exists. Should it have existed in 2016? Well, probably not, but it wasn't that bad of a release, and it was worth just a try for the novelty of seeing such superstars like Kevin Owens and AJ Styles in super late gen WWE 2K games, along with those other missing match types. There you have it folks, our look at the last ever PS3 Xbox 360 WWE 2K game. What are your thoughts on it? Let us know in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling video game content.